Hello, everyone. I'm Sophie Alexander at the Nutritional Wellness Center, and I'm excited to talk to you tonight about hormones, stress, and why your body feels off. This is one of the main things that when people come and meet with me at my practice that they talk to me about, right? Because hormones, they're so important, right? But they rarely act alone, right? The fatigue, the weight gain, mood changes, poor sleep, and cravings often come from multiple systems working together. So your symptoms are signals. They are not random failures. They are absolutely interconnected. And I very much see in practice that the hormones are tied to these fundamentals, right? They're tied to your stress, your sleep, how your gut is working, how your body's eliminating toxins. And I'm going to go into that in a lot more detail as we go along. So I find that people still feel off um, because they don't understand the bigger picture. Um, so yeah, as I was saying, like the hormones, they just don't act alone, right? And we really want to move away from the mindset that your body is failing because it can feel like that, but it absolutely is not. Each symptom is a message pointing toward an underlying pattern that deserves attention, needs investigation. I don't think it's very helpful to just think about one hormone in isolation not working properly, because yes, you can be not sleeping well or have poor sleep or cravings because of maybe your progesterone is low, but usually it's because there's multiple systems that are not working together. So the more we understand the full system, how the hormones are interplaying with the stress response or sleep and circadian rhythm, how the microbiome is working, how you're digesting, what exposures you're having, then that's the first step to really feeling well again. Modern life really adds stressors the body was not designed to handle nonstop. And I see that so many women are carrying all of this. They're trying to eat healthy, they're trying to do it all. And these compounding pressures, it just makes a burden that just builds and builds, right? Um, and no single supplement change or diet change or taking a hormone, doing a hormone therapy, that not one thing like that can address it just on its own. Because the hormones work as a team. And as one system shifts, then the others compensate. And it's why symptoms tend to cluster. They don't just show up one at a time, right? So you've got your stress and your cortisol response. Cortisol is your stress hormone. And there's just a whole downward trend cascade when cortisol is chronically elevated. You've got your sleep and melatonin component, right? This regulates repair in the body, your mood, yeah, how your system resets at night. Very much a role in in your metabolic health. There's your gut health. This is how hormones are processed and cleared, and especially estrogens are cleared from the body. Has a lot to do with your microbiome. Blood sugar and your insulin response um, has a huge role in how the body responds to stress, manages the cortisol, stress hormones, um, and interrupts, dysregulates the whole system if it's off, right? I've had clients who wear constant glucose monitors and um, and if right, they're wearing the monitor and they are trying to regulate. Sorry, I'm just trying to pin myself here really quick. So they're wearing a constant glucose monitor, right? And they're trying to monitor their blood sugar and understanding how their blood sugar is regulating from their diet, and have seen yet again and again that it ties very much back to how their blood sugar is regulating is tied back to their stress levels. And if they're feeling really stressed one morning, they might be eating a perfectly balanced meal, but their blood sugars be trending higher just because of their stress hormones. Um, And then there's the role that thyroid and estrogen plays, right? This really influences energy, your weight, your mood, and your overall body temperature. And so the more we can think about these guys all together as a unit and interplaying players, dynamic players, the more balance we can bring. So stress hormones, I want to talk about more of that in detail at first and the role of how it impacts cortisol. Cortisol is our survival hormone, right? So we want to say, good job, body. You are surviving. You are helping me survive in this moment. Um, a lot of people talk about it, sort of like it's the enemy, right? It's meant to be a short-term stress response. It's completely normal. It's even beneficial, but the problems arise when it's chronically activated, leaving the body stuck in overdrive, or you've been in overdrive for so long, the cortisol actually becomes depleted and you're really burnt out. So cortisol is helpful in emergencies. It sharpens our focus, it mobilizes our energy, it prepares our bodies for action when needed. Um, but the harm comes with this chronic activation, right? And so when you start to feel more fatigue, more anxiety, more belly weight gain, more cravings, poor recovery. And what happens is like, especially as there's a modern overdrive problem, our body cannot distinguish between a real threat and like a packed schedule or a busy life, right? Um, Overcommitted. It's our bodies respond the same way. And so it's about finding these ways to turn the off switch on, right? So that we can deactivate and switch out of this go 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 mode. All right, let's understand a bit more about the blood sugar response and hormone balance, right? So if you haven't eat ultra processed foods, or you skip meals, this causes rapid blood sugar rises, and this triggers a large insulin response, right? And this is what refer to as a blood sugar spike. And when things spike, then there's a crash afterwards. Blood sugar drops sharply, triggers cravings, irritability, energy crashes, and sleep disruption. Um, and when the blood sugar drops, then the body releases more cortisol to stabilize it, right? And so then now you've got like another player, another hormone player in the game. Um, and this is the trap that ends up happening that can make weight loss feel really impossible for women, even when they're doing many things right. And that's why blood sugar is one of the first places we typically start with folks, even if they're not, not diabetic or not pre-diabetic. Stabilizing blood sugar creates safety in the body, and it helps manage this cortisol pattern and this stress pattern. And it's one way that the system can just begin to regulate and tell the body that it's safe. All right, sleep is our hormone repair time. I know my picture is covering up some of the words. I apologize. Um, so at night is when our body recalibrates hormones. So when we recalibrate mood, metabolism, and inflammation, this is a time of biological repair. It's so important. So our growth hormone peaks during deep sleep. Cortisol resets with its morning rhythm. Melatonin coordinates our repair cycle. Our insulin sensitivity improves when we have healthy sleep quality. So when we don't sleep well, right, or we don't sleep enough, um, it raises our stress sensitivity. So a lot of people see this as worse cravings, becoming more insulin resistant, being more irritable, moody, um, and then having cravings, having energy lulls and lows, right? Then reaching for sugar or caffeine, something to kind of quickly spike you back up, and it kind of perpetuates the whole cycle. I find that so many women particularly see their sleep change and worsen before they recognize any other kind of hormonal shifts that are happening for them. So I find that sleep disruption in midlife is closely tied to metabolic changes and glucose regulation. And it can also be this initial warning light, check engine light, about perimenopausal changes, and particularly if there's because stress levels have been so high, progesterone is really too low. So a lot of times, lab in these situations that we're describing, right, labs look totally normal. It's kind of like the warning light is on, and but the gauge reads, yeah, everything's okay. I find that standard labs may miss early dysfunction, compensation patterns, early indicators of hormone balance. A woman's in range, and then so she's just dismissed and said everything's fine, but it's at this tissue level imbalance that and it's reflecting in their symptoms. They're not feeling well. So the body compensates before the numbers fall outside of the reference range, but the symptoms are starting to talk to us, tell us the story. Um, and then when one system starts to overwork for another, um, then we start to see more dysfunction. Um, the hormones, and especially with hormone testing, right? Hormones may be present in the blood, but they're not delivering the message at the cellular level, and there's this tissue level imbalance. And that's where I find some of the other tests that I'm going to be talking about today can be super helpful. All right, the gut plays a huge part in hormone balance. We have this thing called the estrobolome, right? It's the part of the gut microbiome that plays a direct role in estrogen metabolism. Um, so when the gut microbiome is not optimal, this can really influence how our estrogen is recycled and cleared, particularly how estrogen is cleared out of the body, and this affects systemic hormone balance. Um, I see for so many women that estrogen is dominant, and this can be because their cortisol has directly impacted their progesterone. It can be because there's so many endocrine disruptors that they're exposed to, which I'll be talking about more too. But there's multiple, or it can be because the gut is not clearing the estrogen well. So what happens is this gut dysbiosis and sluggish elimination, like literally just being constipated, can lead to estrogen recirculating back into the bloodstream instead of being cleared. And this really makes people feel just much more hormonally symptomatic. And what they tell me or what they're feeling is that they feel bloated, they're constipated, they have PMS, they have skin issues, or their weight feels really stubborn. And they're not necessarily tying that all back to their gut, um, but it's playing a significant role. All right, and then we've got inflammation and our detox capacity. What can happen is that there's just an overflow problem, right? You can think of the body's detox capacity as a bucket, and there's all these inputs, right? There's a stress input, a food input, chemical input, inflammation, and it's just when the inputs exceed the body's ability to process and eliminate them. We refer to this a lot as what are the body's drainage pathways. Then when the drainage pathways are overburdened, then that's when symptoms accumulate. Um, so when the inflammation starts to rise, it just makes everything harder. It impacts energy, mood, sleep, weight. Body's not getting enough nutrients, bile flow, bogs down elimination. Um, and so what's needed to really fuel these detox pathways is nutrient support, right? Your B vitamins play a very important role, your magnesium, antioxidants all keep these channels open. And bile flow is hugely important. It's essential for fat soluble toxin elimination. And bile is where our body puts everything to be moved out. Things go into the bile, then into the bowel, move out with our bowel movements. And the bile flow plays a huge role in healthy elimination, and it's a critical part of the body's detox capacity. And then, of course, we have to make sure that the body's actually eliminating, right? So regular bowel movements and sweating is really completes the cycle of elimination because these are all other important ways that our toxins leave our body and our detox capacity is improved. But we get exposed to endocrine disruptors in our daily life. There are plastic exposures, fragrance exposures, pesticide exposures, water contaminants. Most personal care products, they act as hormone disruptors. And these exposures are small, but they're really frequent. And the accumulation effect really is significant. It really matters. Um, so your plastics, BPA is a big one. I see that a lot with my clients. That is in plastic bottles, especially harder plastics. It's in the linings of cans. It's in clothing. It's in um, on the receipts that we get handed in the store when we go buying things. Um, and these plastics, they are hard to move out. One of the best ways to move them out is through sweating, and just overall decreasing elimination of them, decreasing exposure, excuse me. So a big one is making sure you're not storing food in plastic or heating it in plastic. Fragrance is so important, synthetic scents and candles, cleaning products, and personal care. In the United States, they do not need to disclose what is in the word fragrance, and is usually these endocrine disrupting chemicals. Um, and then you're just, yeah, people are bathed in it all day long. They're getting it from their laundry detergent, and then it's in their shampoo, and then it's in their um, body wash. And our skin is our largest organ. And so all of this becomes absorbed through the skin and is then our body has to process it. We get pesticide exposure. It's residues on conventionally grown produce. And a huge source is water. I think I have so many clients who are very, very health conscious. They're buying more organic. They're referring to the environmental working group's resource of the clean 15 versus the dirty dozen, and they're very aware of where they're getting pesticide exposure through food, and they're working to minimize it. But a big place that people forget about is water. And I find that is very significant. We are drinking water all day long, or hopefully so, and then our gut particularly is just being bathed in that water. And I find that the chemical exposures in water play a big role in why the microbiome is not balancing. And we switch to something like distilled water, which is only H2O, has nothing else in it, right? If you're worried about minerals, you can always remineralize that distilled water. Um, but that makes it that there's no chemicals in the water, and I find that is often a significant shift for people. It's a real game changer. Yeah, and I mentioned about the personal care products where all these exposures are being absorbed through the skin daily. So I know this can be very overwhelming for people. I am not asking for perfection. I'm asking folks to start looking at it and lowering their daily load. I find that small, consistent swaps really add up significantly over time. Yeah, and then supporting your nervous system is very significant, right? You want to think of the nervous system as something that can be in survival mode or it can be in repair mode. All right, so when you're in chronic stress state, the nervous system's locked into protection mode, right? It's kind of the body's equivalent of riding the brakes constantly. Digestion slows or becomes dysregulated. Our detoxification pathways downshift. Our sleep quality is affected. Our reproductive repair is deprioritized. But when we're in repair mode, the nervous system shifts into safety. The body can finally do the work I believe it's designed to do, right? To repair, restore, and rebalance. So many symptoms that women experience are stress physiology problems too. And I find that calming the nervous system is foundational. It's not optional. Is foundational support to do. And there's so many different tools to do that. This talk is not going to go into detail about that. I recently did do one that's on our YouTube channel that goes more into different practices. But I think the biggest message I can share is if you can find a practice that works for you, that can be consistent, um, that makes a huge impact. So really hope that what you take away from this is that Our symptoms are connected, and hormones do not act in isolation, right? The stress, the blood sugar response, poor sleep, gut health, inflammation, they all feed off of the same pattern. Your body's trying to tell your story. Um, and when you address the root drivers, all these systems, it doesn't have to be this complicated story of trying to track each one and build each one. You address these root drivers, and then all the systems start improving together because they share the same underlying cause. And that's why as a practitioner, I really like to focus on the root cause versus symptom management, right? Symptom management, totally understood. Like sometimes we just want to feel better and we want to do something that is designed to address that particular symptom and help us feel better. But really, it is temporary relief, excuse me. Um, might involve ongoing intervention. It doesn't really resolve what's causing and driving everything. And so if we start asking questions of like, why is the body struggling? What is blocking the balance? This often leaves us back to everything I've been talking about. You know, is it due to stress response? Is it due to blood sugar regulation? Is it due to a disrupted circadian rhythm? Do we have to look more at the microbiome? Is there a toxin exposure causing nutrient depletion, causing inflammation, throwing off the gut microbiome, right? This type of questions I like to explore. And this approach identifies the underlying pattern. It addresses multiple systems at once. I really find it creates lasting, sustainable change. And so we're trying to move towards understanding about what the body is actually asking for. Um, and so we want to look at the whole system together, and we want to look at the whole hormone cascade. And looking at a whole system means we don't just look at progesterone or we don't just look at estrogen, right? A whole system panel will look at the adrenal rhythm and your cortisol timing. It'll look at your sex hormones, right? The progesterones, the estrogens, the testosterones. But it'll look at melatonin levels too. It'll look at any endocrine disruptors you're being exposed to, whether there's oxidative stress happening because of those chemical exposures. It will look at your bones. It will look at your gut, because all of our steroid hormones, they are produced through interconnected pathways. Interestingly, cortisol's at the top. You need to have enough cortisol to produce all your hormones. Um, and cortisol converts to pregnenolone, and then that branches into your cortisol and your DHA and your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone. It's all downstream. So, looking at when you shift something upstream, it can really affect everything downstream too. So yeah, I really want to share that there's lots of hope, right? And there's multiple next steps. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms that I've been describing, your body's asking for support. And when the right patterns are identified, gosh, your sleep, your energy, your mood, your weight, it all can improve. Um, and so many women are experiencing exactly what you're feeling. And the right information really changes everything. And so if you're someone who's brand new to all of this, I encourage you to schedule initial assessment with us. This will be your first step in beginning to understand your unique pattern. If you're someone who's very familiar with this and you're just here learning more or wanting to learn a bit more about the hormone test that I'm about to just talk through, hey, share this talk with someone that you love, right? More people need to hear that there's hope and that there's answers and that there's different ways to look at this because our medical system is really failing people in this department. They just look at one little factor to think about the thyroid, or they're just putting people on hormone replacement therapy without asking any of these other questions. So there's a test that I use in practice that I find is incredibly helpful to answer a lot of these questions that I was just describing. It's called the Hormone Zoomer. It's from a company called Vibrant Wellness. And it's a whole system hormone and stress panel. Um, and it looks at those things I was just describing, right? The stress hormones and the cortisol rhythm, but it will tell us the metabolites of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. It'll tell us about melatonin, tell us actually about how all these things are affecting bone health. And it tests these key endocrine disruptors that are so significant. Every time I've run a hormone zoomer, the endocrine disruptors have played a significant role in that test for people. Um, and this is just so important because women experience symptoms long before their labs show abnormalities. And so if we can look at the hormone pathways, we can look at the stress patterns, the detoxification, environmental influences, we can just understand the bigger picture so much faster, so much better, and know which steps are going to be the most appropriate at helping you feel better. So yeah, as I already said, if you're already a client, yeah, share this message with others. If you're not yet a client, call us or email us or text us. Book that initial assessment today. And so we can begin to help you get to the root of it yourself. Well, and that's the end of my talk. So thanks so much for joining me, folks. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to be here. Um, This is being recorded, so you can always revisit it and learn more. Our YouTube channel has all my other Zoom talks as well, so there's a wealth of information. And just keep learning. We are here as a resource, and we're here to help you. All right, have a great night.